Hello and welcome to another devotional connection. Let's go. Psalms 126 verses 5 and 6 has often weirded me out a little bit. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. He that goeth forth and weepeth, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. And I think about this just from a practical standpoint. Why am I crying when I'm sowing? What am I crying about? What am I weeping about? And do I really want to eat the plants and fruit that have been born with tears? I think about things from a practical standpoint, and I got something the other day that kind of hit me. And it was when Jesus was going over to Jerusalem and he was weeping over the city, talking about the folly that they were coming up against. And he knew what was coming. And he goes over the city and he weeps. And I started to look at all the godly men that wept in the Bible. And there's verse after verse after verse of men weeping in the Bible. And I'm like, what are they crying about? And then it hit me again. They have a heart for people. They have a heart for each other. They care about what happens to their fellow man. And it doesn't matter if their fellow man agrees with them. It doesn't matter if their fellow man's on their political side. It doesn't matter if their fellow man is from another country. They are sad about the travesty that's happening to their fellow man. I mean, you go to the story of Jonah. He didn't want his fellow man to be saved. He wanted them to die. That's why he ran away and got swallowed by the big fish and caused a whole lot of other people to go through some terrible situations, some tough storms because of his disobedience, because he needed a heart transplant. And the very thing he didn't want to happen, God did. God saved the people of Nineveh because they turned their attention back to God and changed their ways. And the story ends and he's mad about it. And I just wonder sometimes how many of us are not able to reap anything because we are doing it with the wrong heart. When was the last time you prayed for somebody to the point of tears? When's the last time you wept over someone and their lack of a relationship with God? You cared enough. You hurt so bad for them. You wept over the situation because you know just how good God has been to you, and you want that for somebody else. Sometimes I take my kids out to eat and we'll be driving back home and they'll see somebody who doesn't have any food, a homeless person. And they'll give me this look, this longing look like, Dad, can I give them my food? And I remember once we were actually driving to a party and I didn't know the people that well. I know my kids knew their kids, and I don't eat a lot of other people's foods because, well, I have my own reasoning. And I just took my kids to get something to eat before we got there. And we pulled up on the freeway and there was a man saying, he had a sign that says, I'm just hungry. And my daughter from the back seat, who was the hungriest one and just had gotten her food, says, Dad, he can have my food. Because she cared about somebody else. And I wonder sometimes if what we need in the church, if what I need is that heart transplant that God offers. It's easy to care about people that flat out are useful to you. It's easy to care about people that you have to come alongside or who come alongside you. It's easy to care about stuff that you have no stake in the game. I hear arguments about stuff that we have no control over all the time, and people share their opinions. And I'm like, we don't have any stake in the game. There's nothing we can do about that but pray. And yet we're sitting here arguing back and forth and sharing some opinion as if it's a great epiphany, when really what we need to be doing is praying and asking God to deliver us from evil, and asking God to show mercy and kindness and spare people from themselves. That's what we really need to be doing, because we have the relationship with God. And we know that without him, life must be absolutely miserable. And I don't care what you show on TV. I don't care how many billionaires you put up. Look at the trouble that they face. Without God, what is life? Because he literally is life. And so I share this with you today to say this. Let's take stock of ourselves. Let's go back to God. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Let's go back to the original. Submit to God. Resist the devil. In both cases, you have to go to God first. Let's go back to him and ask him to give us a heart for people, to give us a heart for the things that matter, to not pick sides in travesties that are happening all over the world when people on all sides are dying and children are being left without mothers and fathers, and suffering is on a monumental scale. You and I can't do anything about it, but we know the one who can. Do we have a heart for people? And it doesn't have to be halfway around the world. I work on a Native American reservation at a small Native American church. I could tell you on one hand how many times we've seen other people who've come down to offer any kind of help. Do we have a heart for the people right outside our doors? We have to change, and it's going to take God to do it. Just my thoughts for the day. Talk to you again soon.